Well, hello there. Multiple felon CondorCalabasas here. Gonna teach you how to play Battlefield. Let's get right into it. Alright, a little bit of preamble, a little bit of intro for you. Battlefield 3 Pro, co-founder of the North Korean People's Army Special Operations Force, the team with the best Battlefield 3 Battlefield 3 jet pilots, Nuck the Whaleman and Braddy, the best Battlefield 3 chopper gunner Ronnie, and the best infantry team, led by Shades Rain, including Harp, Paolo, and myself. My role was a rare hybrid role, where on infantry-only maps, I'd be defending in the most difficult infantry positions to both attack and defend, and on the vehicle maps, I'd be support for infantry, or I'd be gunning for the tanker, using that tank as a sort of taxi to flank and capture objectives. Point I'm making is that I'm an expert on Battlefield infantry gameplay, and although I've flown choppers professionally, I didn't really do well, nor was I in my opinion, I wasn't that great. So you're not going to get like a professional level insight on everything else. It's just infantry gameplay where I can give you the deets. I am going to cover vehicles as well, but obviously I'm not going to go into as much detail there. Alright, first thing you have to understand about Battlefield is you have to have some, knowledge. You have to understand the subtle differences and nuance between the unique traits within the gameplay. Like, for example, one RPG might have a much higher velocity than others, possibly making it viable for taking down helicopters. Tanks sometimes not only have weak armor in the rear, but if a rocket goes in between the gaps of this rear armor, it does significantly more damage. And you can place health and ammo crates on vehicles. A health crate on a transport helicopter can be very useful, for example. Vehicles of the same type may handle very differently. You may find one helicopter far more difficult to fly than another helicopter. When it comes to tanks, taking a tank out can, a fully maxed out tank with all the loadout and the special abilities and whatnot, that can require a very, very different strategy to take them out. For example, planting mines instead of using rockets. Thermal and night vision, that can really have a change how you should be moving around the map. If you have a chopper gunner who's got night vision and is constantly hunting down infantry players, you're gonna have to play a little bit different. You're gonna have to find a shorter route between objectives, you know what I mean? So it's all these little qualities, these little things, these little nuance in Battlefield that is different from a lot of other shooters, and you're gonna have to learn these things and understand these things in order to actually be an asset to your team. So I think the best example of this is you might not have let's say your team is getting their ass kicked by an enemy air team. So you might not have the skills or the ability to hop into a chopper or hop into a jet to go and take out the enemy jets or the enemy choppers. But you should be able to hop into a fixed air gun, anti-air gun, or just pull out a anti-air missile like a Stinger or something, and use that. You know what I mean? There's understanding these things and how best to counter what situation and what to use where, and the disadvantages and the advantages that you and your opposition have is super important. All right, next, point number two, keeping your cool. This is super important in most shooters, especially ones involving a one life game mode, and that is remaining focused and calm, especially when shit hits the fan. If you're distracted with thinking of other things, if you freeze and panic when 3 enemies or a tank pop around a corner, you're going to be constantly putting yourself and your teammates at a disadvantage. So it's one of those things that it's going to take some time to get used to and learn or unlearn, but you gotta chill out when shit gets super intense. Number 3, knowing when you've lost a fight before your squad wipes. This is something that is all but exclusive to pro infantry players, and that is understanding that you've lost a fight before your squad is wiped, or even better, before anyone in your squad gets dropped. For example, an infantry squad without anti-armor weapons has no logical choice but to retreat when they are met with a tank. But it's often more complex than that. It requires some experience with the game itself and uh, your infantry squad strength. Things like cover, weapons, distance, ammo, and health status. All of these factors apply both to you and your squad and all the enemies you're fighting. Understanding these advantages and disadvantages helps you and your squad to know when to push and attack and when to retreat. Sometimes, rarely, there will be no retreat. You'll be trapped in a corner and you have to fight it out. Ideally, map knowledge will help you avoid these kinds of situations. Alright, I'm just going to give you a little quick example here. Pause this real quick. Alright, so right there, that was an example of me knowing I had lost, and not in a squad there, but same shit. I got down to 6% here. Can you actually see the percent? No, my face cam is covering it up. Oh well. It got me down to like 6% health. I missed the shots that I was trying to hit, and that would have been like, if I landed those shots, it definitely would have been a kill for me. But regardless, it doesn't matter. I lost, I back off, I heal. This is the difference between like a pro player and a casual player. Casual players, just like, they don't know when to let go, they don't know when to retreat. They always gotta keep on fighting, you know? So yeah, don't do that. Know when to retreat, know when to back off, know when to go back for health, you know? Don't just fight because you can. Alright. Number 4. How to properly clear. When it comes to offensive gameplay and clearing areas, it's important to resist the temptation to cut corners. Lots of players get a sort of tunnel vision when they clearing a much smaller area than they should. By yourself, clearing areas is extremely difficult and often results in you being forced to look in one direction while exposing yourself in another. As long as you're working with one other person and they are competently clearing, teamwork can make clearing anywhere far, far easier. Just one other person is all you need. With these kind of strategies properly implemented by just a single two-man team, it can make a massive difference in a game. When it comes to movement, it's important to cover your teammates. This is probably somewhat obvious. Covering your teammates is about understanding their current disadvantages, like, for example, a building they might get shot from, you know, a wide open area where the enemies might be, and how to then balance that situation. So your teammate is taking cover close around the corner, wounded and being pushed. So, you know, you're facing the corner, teammates just come back around the corner, they're hurt, they're healing up, they know enemies are coming by. That is your best time to set up defensively, wait crouch, wait prone, whatever, waiting for those enemies to come around that corner. If there are no enemies, it can still be beneficial to do a short check for enemies while your teammates sprint forward, you know, to your next location or whatever. These strategies are less important for the squad leader, as they should be more focused on what is ahead. Squad leader kind of has to play the game just like you regular first-person shooter. It's a lot easier to be a squad leader than, well, in a way, it sort of depends. In terms of like the things you got to keep in mind, it's somewhat simpler, but you also have to be more of an expert. It's complex. Whatever. Anyways, when your teammate crosses a wide open terrain, it's best to check for enemies for a few seconds to both create distance between you and to cover your teammate. The further back in the squad you are, the more important it is that you cover your teammates, and the more important it is that you keep a careful balance of covering teammates and grouping up. So that's like the kind of the tricky situation and the balance that really the squad leader doesn't really have to worry about. And that's knowing when it's how to balance that, like, you know, sprinting with, grouping up with, staying with your team, and actually like covering your teammates. So that's like a complicated thing that you kind of just gotta get used to doing, and it'll you'll figure it out. When it comes to clearing areas in general, This is simply best learned through just practice and map knowledge. Like you'll eventually kind of just know where to look and when to look when you're clearing an area. So based on your weapons, your map knowledge, you'll need to clear popular areas and objectives by aiming for places where enemies are likely to be, compensating your aim for how much your weapon recoils and its one hit potential. So I'm rocking my AEK. I'm not right here, but like I'm rocking my or this AN94. Well, fuck that. Okay, let's say I'm rocking the AEK, which is like a high recoil kind of very fast firing weapon. I'm gonna have to aim a little bit lower than I normally would with the average weapon. I'm gonna be aiming pretty low, so even if there's somebody prone where I'm looking, I can like hold the trigger and the bullets are still gonna hit. I can still spray and hit that person who's prone. So things like that. And let's say you got like a shotgun and it's all close range, you don't really have to worry too much about where you're aiming, just like center mass. If you got a sniper rifle and you're aiming close range, you're probably going to want to go for headshots. Maybe it's a sniper rifle that kills in a chest shot. I don't know, I'm just saying, theoretically. When it comes to clearing objectives with a squad, um, first of all, make sure you always clear every single spot on an objective. You want it to be as thoroughly clear as possible. And once you actually have cleared the objective, immediately have everybody run into a defensive position and just, sit down, chill for a little bit till the objective's captured, then move on. The best strategy going forward for a squad is to have one member just immediately rush to a defensive position and just kind of like sit there, being the sort of like anchor for the team, the spawn anchor, while the rest of the squad goes in and actually clears the objective. This way, squad gets surprised, they get flanked, they get pushed really hard. The enemy is going to take a lot longer to like find that last player, that last spawn beacon. Some areas and objectives will best be cleared with teamwork. This is most easily accomplished by simply glancing at the radar. The squad leader waits the amount of like this gameplay that we're watching here, right? That I'm paying attention to where my squad leader is, which is the this little fucking the arrow with like the line on it. So that's my squad leader. So I'm constantly like paying attention to where they are and where my teammates are, and I'm always constantly moving in a position based on that. Um, and it's all like 90% of it's by looking at the radar. Once your squad is grouped up and the team see the leader push forward and enter the room, throw smoke, whatever, they push in with the leader. So a lot of this teamwork of like, okay, when do I move with my squad leader or whatever the fuck, it's really just like paying attention to where they are and just like watching them on the radar. When they move, you move. It's really when they retreat, you retreat. Obviously, when gunfights, when you're in the middle of a fight, you're not going to be wanting to look at your radar at all. So that's why it's kind of important for like squad leaders to say things like retreat or shit like that. All right. When it comes to organizing who goes where, if a teammate approaches the left side of a door to a room, they must then push the left side of that room, clearing the left side first. Left, left, left. All right? Opposite applies to the right side of the room. If a teammate approaches the right side of a door, that teammate is communicating to you with their body language that they're about to clear the right side of the room. They're about to push hard right, and they're going to clear the right side of that corner first, and then clear all right side down, and then to the middle, and then they'll peek left. This sounds kind of like complex or weird, but trust me when I say this is incredibly intuitive, and this is one of those things that like once you get enough practice doing this, it'll become like second nature, and you and your friends or whatever will be able to do this no problem. Same thing apply. It doesn't really matter how many people you have. If you have 8 players, doesn't matter. You just split in groups of 2. It works just as groups of 2. So 2 teams. They go left and right, each team left and right, each team left and right. You know what I mean? Same thing, each little two-man squad. So if you ever like wondering what you would do in a situation where you have, more than two people, you want to split your squads up into two, split everybody up into twos. Number 5. I'm not sure if I was still numbering them, but this is number 5. Squad leader should be, this is a squad makeup. Squad leader should be your best or second best player, the person most familiar with that game. The squad leader's job is to be the first one to get the squad out of danger and retreat, or the one who determines whether or not the squad stays and fights. So they kind of have to have a pretty thorough understanding of the game, because really, it's their job to keep you alive, basically. They're the ones who like lead you out of the danger. It's key for the squad leader to always be moving to the next fight or the next objective while making sure that teammates aren't being left behind. This is a balance, but when it comes to the shift in the balance, which side you want to lean on, it's ultimately better to be catching up with your squad leader than it is for your squad leader to be waiting. So keep that in mind. You don't really want your squad leader to be waiting for grouping up all the time. It's going to slow you down. Not good. You want your teammates to be focused more on catching up, and let them be a little bit far behind sometimes. Don't be afraid to have that squad leader be a little bit I don't know, aggressive with their movement. The squad leader has to be aggressive with the movement. Most of the squad leader's job can be done without speaking, by paying attention to their position, mostly through quick glances at the radar. I already went over this. A squad leader can remind their team when they are moving from a place recently defended or cleared, but it's always tells their team when they should retreat. So things like your casual kind of like non-combat callouts aren't super important for the squad leader to mention. But if it's anything like retreating is the most important call out, and the squad leader really cannot screw that up. They really have to know when to get the hell out of there. Above all, squad leader's most important job is to keep everybody in a there we go. Above all, their job is to keep their squad in positions with lots of cover. That's kind of just like the core, always focused. As a squad leader, you got to be focused on good cover to good cover to good cover. That's your main focus. Last member of the squad has the most complex and boring job of the group and requires the most concentration and patience. The last member of the squad's job is to cover the team and constantly check flanks. Last member needs to constantly be in near perfect position, covering the flanks while staying within a reasonable distance from the squad leader. The last member is a living spawn beacon for your team. They are your safety net and the trap waiting for your teammates as your team retreats around a corner. The importance of a player covering flanks and constantly playing defensively cannot be understated. The harder the fight, the better the enemy team, the more kills, and the better your defensive last player does. This also means that in landslide victories and when you're on a great squad, the last member is unlikely to see much action. That's where the boring part comes in. That's where it can be really shitty and boring to be the last member in the squad. Alright, now positioning. Positioning is relatively simple. All the squad, except the last member, follows their squad leader very closely. How close depends on the current distance to cover and the average grenade explosive radius. In a wide open field, your squad should be widely spread out. In dense city streets, your squad should be roughly a frag's explosion away, 5 to 10 feet, I would say. It depends on the game, obviously. When it comes to moving through the environment itself, you should always be hugging cover as closely as you can when you move from objective to objective. Alright, now cover itself. How someone uses cover is one of the biggest differences you see in gameplay between your average gamer and your average pro. Cover should be approached or peeked in one of two ways. First is your very aggressive peek, depending on the game and how much jumping negatively affects your accuracy. You may want to jump when you do this type of peek. So In like your military sim, obviously you're not going to want to jump when you do this. You're going to just want to like kind of sprint around the corner. When an arcade shooter, more like Battlefield, you're going to want to jump. You want to get as much distance you can around that corner in order to throw off your opponent's aim. That's kind of the strat here. This is best used when you think your enemies have the advantage. I'm going to have a little example of this aggressive peek here. So they definitely know I'm here because I'm making so much damn noise. And it doesn't matter because that guy's dead anyways. But I aggressive peeked at the end there because it was really obvious I was where I was. So yeah, perfect time to aggressive peek. Really? That was weird. Second way cover should be approached is your simple pie in the corner. If you don't know this, you cautiously just like carefully peek the corner. You know, I would recommend for arcade games, video games, you do a little bit of a left and right kind of movement, a little bit of a dodging movement. So you potentially bait out an enemy attack, an enemy, you know, gunfire or whatever, and you can easily avoid that attack because you're already like, you know, going back into cover with that left and right movement. So yeah, that's really the only tips I have for pieing the corner itself. Yeah, yeah, I basically covered all this. So yeah, just pieing the corner as you'd expect it. The only real difference is because it's like an arcade shooter or whatever the fuck. People are going to stand in like really good places, and it's going to take map knowledge and being more familiar with the game to like know where people are going to be standing. Some places are just going to be really hard to predict, and that's just how it's going to be. When it comes to defending around a corner, do not position yourself too close to where the enemy will enter, as it gives them an easy headshot, and do not position yourself where you will be seen on the approach. You want the enemy to be forced to clear the area quickly and not stand in the most predictable positions. So you kind of want to be somewhere in kind of like that middle zone, middle kind of gray area. Not right to his left around the corner, not right to his, you know, nowhere immediately obvious. Casual gamers, especially those experienced with Call of Duty, tend to use sprinting in a similar way to how a pro uses a weapon or ability. Sprinting around corners when it's clearly dangerous to do so, being surprised by the enemy, and getting dropped. It's always wise to properly clear a corner. Always, 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 always. There's no excuse for sprinting around a corner. Finally, keep in mind in a shooter whether or not your character holds a weapon right or left-handed determines how much they stick out around a corner. Hugging cover to cover up your body will only be effective if you're aware of this. Yeah, you can go ahead and look that up online. That's in like every shooter ever. Different types of cover. There are a variety of different types of cover. Any cover that cannot be seen through or easily shot through, like fences, fabrics, and smoke grenades, is what we call visual cover, as it's best used for stealth, like visually covering up your position, but all cover can be used effectively for stealth. This type of cover, this kind of this visual cover, is best avoided or used only temporarily. Good cover is cover that actually blocks bullets without being quickly destroyed. It's best for fighting infantry, transport vehicles, and air vehicles. Perfect cover cannot be destroyed with any sort of explosive, making it best for fighting tanks and literally everything. Stealth. Now, yes, stealth. Cover can be used as stealth against helicopters, especially tanks and infantry. Stealth is an element almost never used by even most pros. Seeing a large group of infantry ahead of you, spotted on a map or radar ahead, coming is your perfect opportunity for your squad to quickly find a place to hide and not move a muscle. Enemy tank and you've got no anti-armor weapons, you hide. A group of enemies are coming to capture objective ahead of you, a huge group of enemies. hide, let them take the objective, let them pass, then capture the objective. In order to know when stealth is necessary, you must first understand when you've lost battles before your squad wipes. You got to be not like full-on expert at the game, but you got to be pretty thorough understanding of these games and how they work in order to actually use stealth effectively. In some games, you can even convincingly look like a dead body. This works in a lot of different games. Not exactly worth recommending. In Battlefield, it's going to be trickier because, you know, the whole, like, spotting business. So, yeah, I'm not exactly recommending that. I'm just saying there's a lot of different strategies for stealth that people use. Me and my infantry have won countless games by literally just, like, avoiding conflict and just capturing objectives behind enemies. And because we were simply faster than they were, we would end up winning games, and we'd have like so few kills but no deaths. And the point is that how effective stealth is in a Battlefield game really cannot be understated, and it is a skill that you absolutely have to master if you want to be able to if you want to actually win games. The most important tool in your stealth toolset is when you aim your weapon down sights. This either greatly reduces or eliminates all footstep sound in many shooters, not just Battlefield. Having your squad move without making a sound can provide a huge advantage simply by surprising your enemies. But of course, this can be slow, so you want to use it pretty strategically. Silencers are typically not quite as important or useful for stealth as you might think. Typically, when you are spotted by an enemy in Battlefield, they mark you with a marking system. This places a shape above your head that highlights you on screen and on the radar for all enemies. Because of this, it's unlikely, unless your entire squad is working well together, all using silencers not on such a small map where the sound can easily be heard regardless, you're not going to benefit from them. Silencers are very situational and should be applied across your squad. Either everyone uses them or no one does. Combat. Next subject. Combat attracts attention. It's like Notoriety in a Grand Theft Auto game. The longer you stay in one area, the more noise you make, the more attention you attract. Repositioning a short distance from where you fired a weapon, or merely moving off an objective once it's captured, are ways to keep your enemy guessing. It's incredibly important your squad leader understands this. Once the enemy pushes you or your squad with numbers, or when you're in a fight, it becomes extremely risky to do any action that lowers your weapon, especially sprinting. Though it varies on the game, typically based on the speed of the weapon switch versus a reload, it is often the best strategy to switch to a pistol rather than reloading. Alright, little clip for you here. Alright, so I get a kill and I immediately reposition. It's kind of glitchy how that looks there, but I just immediately jump on this rock that I was standing next to just to reposition, and I'm on a beach, so behind me there can't be enemies. The only enemies can be pushing me from this right side over here, so I immediately reposition. And you can't see this, well, you can barely see this, but my teammate here, as I get this kill, my teammate is immediately pushing up to help me because we're both assuming that I'm going to get attacked now. Once you get a kill, you're probably going to have somebody attack you immediately after that. So I'm at the disadvantage here, and that's why I reposition. Now, my teammate gets the kill, so now the focus is switched now. Now he's the target, he's the focus. So now, even though I have been hit, it's kind of stupid for me to not put myself out there for my teammate, because the attention should be on him. You'd have to be kind of a dumbass to be aiming for me right at this moment. Super aggressive push, that aggressive jumping push that you see. From the enemy's perspective here, they actually didn't really make any mistakes. They could have played this more defensively, but that's it. And so yeah, since they were like focused on the wrong person at the wrong time, but their logic was there. And so yeah, that's that. Sometimes you have to keep in mind that in Battlefield, not every map is infantry friendly, and not every one of these strategies that I've mentioned here, I'm going to mention, is actually gonna work in these situations. You want to have at least two people capable of reviving on your squad at all times. When it comes to these wide open, massive maps that have a distinct vehicle focus, sometimes your best choice is to play your humble card and have you and everyone on your squad switch to anti-air and anti-armor rocket launchers, with possibly a class that carries ammo. Keep in mind, of course, that your chances of surviving, like say shooting a tank with a rocket, is very unlikely. So things like ammo in that particular situation isn't exactly the most useful. Best off, like, mostly the engineers, the anti-armor, whatever. The point here is that there will be times when the best strategy will be to have your entire squad switch to a certain class or weapon. This isn't a common occurrence, and like I said above, it's most likely that specific scenario of a vehicle map simply not supporting infantry gameplay. Some jackasses can sit in their spawn with a tank and just can't be killed. This isn't a common thing in Battlefield games, but it definitely happens. If you're playing on a map with one tank per team and your team is getting destroyed by their enemy tank player, you have options. You could attempt to set up flanks or traps, landmines. You'll have to have some creativity and like some map knowledge to be able to do that, to effectively set up a trap. You could simply attempt to capture objectives faster than the tank, and avoiding fighting it altogether. A good Battlefield game and a good Battlefield map allows infantry squads a lot of choice in how they fight. Oh, Jesus Christ. Alright, let's get into weapons. This isn't going to be too in depth here. With some Battlefield titles, there can be differences in how the bullets behave based on their caliber. For example, in Battlefield 3, Russian bullets are slower moving, less accurate, with a slight increase of drop, with a trade-off of a slight damage increase in comparison to the Allied bullets. In some Battlefield titles, removing all weapon sights from a weapon and simply using iron sights can offer a huge aim down sights speed advantage few players take advantage of. Long range accuracy with iron sights isn't as difficult as most people make it out to be, but it does require practice. Plus, with many Battlefield titles, a spray of bullets at a long range target can cause suppression or simply intimidate. So it's not like you always need deadly long range accuracy in a Battlefield title. A lot of players gravitate to certain weapon types that I would personally advise against for the most part. Only in the biggest of maps are SMGs and personal defense weapons. A poor choice. Personal defense weapon is basically another word for SMG. Shotguns are almost always tactical suicide and almost always a bad idea. Shotguns are good at defense but near useless at any offensive gameplay whatsoever. So unless you're playing team deathmatch or whatever, it's strongly advised against a shotgun. LMGs are typically considered the less optimal choice simply due to overkill, with the disadvantages of this weapon type simply screwing over the more skilled player, like a lower aim down sight speed and slower reload. Sniper rifles are. Suppose I could just play that. Where was I? Sorry. But often, okay, sniper rifles are overall considered the best in this non-assault rifle bunch. But often snipers attempt to play lone wolf within the infantry squad, going off by themselves to snipe in high places. This is a great way to learn sniping, but if you really want the kills, if you really want to do well, running with a squad as support for them is much better for you, your kills, your KD, your experience, your skill level, and your team. So I strongly recommend you snipers out there actually stick with your squad, even when you're doing, your long range sniping. Um, if you're new to Battlefield, your best bet is the anti-tank and anti-air classes, like the engineers, typically the ones with the Stinger missiles, rocket launchers, and the classes with the light machine guns. All right, let's get into some item techniques, whatever. Typically, there are two types of a healing equipment in a Battlefield game. You got your long range thrown healing or atom item, or fuck no. Your long range thrown healing or atom ammo items require no further explanation. Jesus Christ. So, yeah, let me re explain that since that was gibberish. The stuff that you throw, it's super simple. There's nothing I need to explain about that. But the placed health boxes and placed ammo boxes do require a little bit of explanation here. Placed large health boxes should always be placed in cover. Ideally, a place a few feet away from corners to avoid explosive damage or similar. At the beginning of a fight, particularly longer range fights, the best strategy is to preemptively place a health pack in cover before you and your teammates are actually wounded. Placed ammo crates are very similar, but a strategy exclusive to ammo crates is that they can also be placed in areas less likely to be searched by enemies and left there as long as they last, providing a more consistent and reliable location for your teammates to get ammo. That's especially good in like your team deathmatch game modes. Um, the better your teammates are, the more likely they'll take advantage of these hidden ammo crates. So just keep in mind, if you're playing with a bunch of dumb fucks, they probably will never find your ammo crate. Maybe that's a strategy you want to implement like later on when people are more familiar with the game. I'm just gonna have a little short clip here. As you can see, that's it. Just a bunch of ammo and health boxes all around this corner there. There's nobody even fucking there, but it's just like that's just like the rule. People are gonna like run back, retreat. That's a great place. If people are gonna run back and retreat to a place that you're gonna take cover in a place, that's a good place for you to put ammo, for you to put health. All right, smoke grenades. Smoke grenades are the most important tool in a squad's tool belt. So we got the stealth tool belt now. We got the squad tool belt. But using smoke isn't as simple as it seems. Using smoke on targets should always be offset a short distance. You want enemies to be between you and the smoke. When using it to revive, you want it a short distance away from your teammate towards the nearest enemy. When using it to cross wide distances, you want it to spread out and place at least one on your goal. When it comes to enemies, you want to be close to them. You want the smoke to be close to them, but you want them to have to walk through the smoke to get to you. So a little bit ahead of them. Reviving. Most important thing for both you and your teammates to memorize is how long it takes for a downed player to no longer be revivable, the revive time. It's important that both you and your teammates are patient, as being revived is always more advantageous and beneficial for both your squad and your team as a whole. Music cut out as well. There we go. Beneficial for both your squad and your team as a whole for you to be revived rather than respawn. As a medic, it's important to use the time you have to check for danger, clear the area, and throw a smoke grenade if you need it. Let the time for the smoke grenade, the actual smoke from the smoke grenade, to disperse. Ultimately, it's better to lean on letting a risky revive go, letting your teammate die so they can respawn on you, rather than going out there for a really risky revive and getting yourself killed. When it comes to reviving a downed teammate, it's important to understand it's a two-way street. It's your teammate's responsibility to always be next to cover, so that if they need to be revived, it's actually possible without extreme luck. Knowing you're about to die and taking that last second to attempt to throw your body into cover is a professional infantry player tactic. Hugging walls and cover as you traverse the map as if standing out in the open is lava is a professional infantry player tactic. Cover isn't about just avoiding getting shot in Battlefield, it's about dying in a place where it's easy to revive you. So first key to both getting revived and reviving is cover. Sometimes there is no cover. Depending on the map, you may find your squad constantly being forced out of cover into the open. The solution is almost always the same: smoke. But using smoke, yeah, I actually just already covered. When it comes to reviving, there's no shame in always using a smoke grenade. That's basically the only other thing I forgot to mention. Yeah, so if you want to just always be safe, if you're learning the game, always throw a smoke grenade for your revives. God, what a fucking clusterfuck. Alright, now we have something I invented. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. This is what we call the CondorCalabasas Revive, the advanced revive technique. Thing about reviving people is most Battlefield players, almost all Battlefield players, including professional infantry players, have a simple strategy when it comes to downed enemies. If they know a medic is nearby a downed enemy, or they think there might be, they'll watch the enemy, and once the enemy gets revived, they'll immediately drop them again. One of the best strategies in any type of competition is to force your opponents to make a decision. It's simply the small delay, this minor interruption, sometimes it being unexpected, is what throws people off. And in these moments where people are forced to make a decision, they make mistakes, like a cartoon character untying a shoe in a foot race, an opponent's shoe. The CondorCalabasas Revive is simple. You push towards the enemy who downed your teammate, reviving your teammate along the way and placing your body as a human shield between the enemy and your teammate. Most people assume this is total suicide until they try it. This works because it not only forces people to make a decision, it's typically unexpected, and their aim is low because they were aiming at a prone enemy. And if you're likely to spread the incoming damage between you and your teammate. This technique is so effective that it actually works against pros. Alright, next. Communication and the 3-word callout. A lot of gamers have this mentality that communication is the most important thing in a team-based game. The reality is bad communication can actually be a massive distraction and a huge disadvantage. Its key when it comes to communication is it's meant to be short, simple, and understandable. It's not the story of the enemy's location. It isn't the high Q about how the tank killed you, nor is it about describing what the mountain a sniper is standing on looks like. I believe that almost everything that can be communicated in a competitive game can be reduced to 3 words. It's important to limit the amount of communication because distractions disadvantage your team, and when things get chaotic, it can be difficult to understand anyone if everyone is going into too much detail with their callouts. Not every enemy you see needs to be called out, but all enemy location information helps inform you and your squad to make better decisions. Enemy vehicles, enemy tanks, snipers, and any enemies flanking are all examples of high priority callouts that must be called out. As you and your squad get more familiar with this, teammate vocal communication will become less important, but calling out big threats will always remain important. So here is the callouts me and my squad currently use, and still use to this day since Battlefield 3. Alright, first of all, first is enemy type, number, and position. When you see enemies that could possibly be a threat, you call out whether they are infantry, light, or heavy armor, helicopter, or specifically a jet about to attack. Infantry and ground vehicles position should be referred to in the distance metric used in the game, typically meters. You don't really have to call out the air vehicle's exact position distance. You just kind of want to point out the general direction of air vehicles. But when it comes to infantry and ground vehicles, if the threat is immediate or dangerously close, their position is always the first thing you want to mention when you call them out. But regardless, when it comes to infantry and ground vehicles, you always want to mention how far away they are. Very important. I've already I think I already covered this. Left and right side, this is relatives where your squad's objective or focus is. So, if you're going towards a Charlie objective, this would be to the left of the Charlie building or whatever, to the right of the Charlie building, so on and so forth. Second, third, or fourth story, sometimes there's buildings with multiple stories, and the only way you can really specify is mentioning a specific story. High, low, this is relative to your squad, like when an enemy is on a hill above you or a ditch below. Flanking, this is relative to where your squad's focus objective is again. This should be exclusively used to describe enemies' positions and never teammates' positions. Use the term behind to call out teammates' position or your own position. So, like, I'm behind you, or you got teammates coming up behind you, as opposed to flanking. Moving to you, grouping up, group up, throwing smoke, enemies on the roof, like contextual things, far and close, pretty obvious, enemies very, very far away, enemies close. There's on us, which means at least one enemy is very close to you and your squad mates, and or your squad mates. On me specifically means there's at least one enemy very close to you. I'm down. You are downed, but revivable. And just landmarks in general. I'm hurt is good for kind of informing your teammates how much you're going to be fighting in the fight. So if you're like super wounded, obviously you're going to be focused on healing and you're not going to be fighting back for those seconds. That can help your teammates out. And also mentioning if you're like out of ammo, if you're on a pistol, that's worth mentioning as well. All right. Now we start to get a little bit more complex. There's a little bit more advanced techniques here, a little bit more pro gamer techniques. This is baiting. So baiting is a advanced shooter technique that should be something practiced once you are much more familiar with the game. Baiting is simple. It's about getting your enemy to play in a way that is aggressive and reckless. Baiting requires your opponent be an aggressive player. It simply will not work against the defensive or the patient players. Good news, that very few gamers are defensive or patient. How best to do it, when to do it, can vary greatly. In order to get someone to play overly aggressive or recklessly, you must convince them that they have the advantage. Some people are so overly confident in their own skills, you don't need to do anything to bait them, just wait for them to lose patience. Baiting can be done by yourself, but is best done with a teammate. Baiting is best explained through example. My infantry team and I will bait people in a variety of ways, including but not limited to firing a unsilenced pistol and then switching back to a primary, making people think you're only armed with a pistol, having one teammate run around jumping like an idiot, peeking corners for a fraction of a second, drawing fire so the rest of the team has an easy shot, doing illogical things like peeking a corner so only your knife sticks out, drawing fire, slashing objects or otherwise making noises, drawing attention, running up to a tank when you aren't an engineer so they think you have some sort of deadly explosive, and they bail out the tank. This rarely works. And it's best to hold the enter vehicle button when you do this so you immediately jump into their tank as they bail out. It rarely works, but that is indeed a form of baiting. You're baiting him to jump out the tank. Baiting is tricky, requires luck and a lot of practice. So good luck out there. This is the most difficult of all the pro gamer skills, and that would be target prioritization. Easily the most difficult thing for anyone to master in a shooter. Simple to explain, simple to understand. Most people convinced they are great at it, yet so few pull it off even competently. In a no-stress situation, target prioritization is trivial, but as stress, complexity, and unexpected problems arise, target prioritization becomes exponentially more difficult. Proper target prioritization is just as much about staying calm and focused as it is about the technique itself. So what is target prioritization? When you are presented in a situation in a shooter where you've made the decision to stay and fight and you have more than one target you can damage, what targets you choose and in what order is target prioritization. Imagine a situation. There is no cover nearby. There are 3 enemy medics in front of you. The enemy on the left is the best player in the lobby. They are facing away from you, about to revive a teammate. The next player is downed, but about to be revived. The last player is on the right facing you. What is the proper order? The average player will choose the first target they see. The tryhard will choose the guy being revived. And the pro will target the enemy facing them first. Then the pro will target the enemy attempting to revive. Then the pro will target the guy being revived. The enemy facing you always has the highest chance of dropping you. The enemy attempting to revive is the closest to being able to switch to their primary and fight back. The guy being revived will take the longest to react and fight back. When it comes to target prioritization, a player's skill level is never taken into an account by a pro player. So, me mentioning, there's the best player in the lobby, that was tricks. I was trying to trick you. This mentality of prioritizing players who you think are the best in the lobby is exclusive to casuals and tryhards. Pros do not do that. We don't fucking care. You'd be reprimanded or kicked off a team for doing stupid ass shit like that. So yeah, don't learn target prioritization because it is the most important skill out of all of these by far. And I actually do have I have fun little clips of this. This is what I would describe as literally a perfect example of target prioritization. So, I can see this guy here, and he isn't facing me, which is about the reddest of red flags. I don't sprint around this corner, I creep around this corner, I'm trying to just be stealthy in general. This guy is facing away from me in a professional gaming match. And that's about the most suspicious thing I've ever seen in my entire life, so I'm assuming that there's a guy right around this corner. And because I knew that guy was on the corner on the right, I sort of surprised the shit out of him, and I also surprised his buddy that was back there. The strategy totally fucking backfired, and it was target prioritization that saved my ass. So the second this dude, I'm missing this dude or whatever, missing all over the place. Second that guy is no longer visible, I immediately switch targets. That is perfect target prioritization, my friends. Alright, and this is where my brain basically, breaks. So, we are, rocking a 30 FPS game, so it's hard to, react in a very timely fashion, but it's hard to know. The reason why I'm flopping back and forth here is because, the enemies are appearing to face me and then not face me, so I'm not sure who exactly to go for based on who's looking at me. That guy's facing me for a second. Yeah. Alright, now that's basically the end of the infantry section, and now we get to the fun vehicle section, which is going to be a lot shorter, don't worry. This will be real fucking fast. Different vehicles tend to have different performance. If you don't know, if you don't like how one helicopter or jet handles, you might like the other one. Jets turn better or worse based on speed. Jets require a level of near constant practice to get good at. If you want to be a jet player, you're going to have to be practicing every time you play the game constantly all day long. It's going to have to be an obsession. Um, you should, whether or not you should be able to achieve a professional level is hard to say, but it should be possible for the average player to be pretty effective at taking out helicopters at the very least with some practice on a jet. Um, Most people, in my experience, seem to be playing awful at flying helicopters, and although I've had professional scrimmages or whatever, I was never really as good as the pros. Like I was, just to like be very clear how I was able to both play against them and not as good as them, is they were way more accurate with the onboard guns and the flying the choppers, but I was roughly as good, if not just as good, if not some of them a little bit better at flying. But kind of thing is you kind of need to be able to shoot enemies while you fly. So I'd be great at dodging. I would dodge the fucking piss out of like crazy shots. I'd be like rear dodging shit, but yeah, I just could not hit the shots. Anyways, so best tip I can give you when it comes to flying a helicopter is best to imagine you're spinning a plate, your plate spinner spinning them plates around, all right? Um, you have to think about never doing extreme angles unless you're a psychopath or you've mastered the game. Um, and you got to think about like burning off that momentum. You know what I mean? Like if you've ever done any sort of plate spinning or anything somewhat similar, you know that sometimes you're gonna have to like run forward a little bit, or you know you might have to do some kind of crazy ass move or whatever to get that like thing balanced out. And that's really what the helicopter is all about. You got to be constantly like having that mental picture in your head of that plate being spun. That's what I'm constantly doing of that plate being spun. How much momentum? How much you got to really focus and think about like where your position is and that momentum has to be on your mind every single second. When it comes to being like a chopper gunner, it's it's one of those things that's like easy to be decent at, but incredibly difficult to be extremely good at. So, yeah, not really anything worth mentioning there. You just got to practice, got to get good. Most Battlefield games have a air radar system where if you go below a certain height, you cannot be locked on. That's something that is super important to keep in mind when it comes to air vehicles, especially helicopters. You want to get good, you want to kick ass and take names. You're gonna have to know where to fly low, to avoid infantry, to avoid lock-ons, so on and so forth. Um, when it comes to like flying a helicopter in combat, it's actually somewhat similar to, in my opinion, a fighting game. You got to think about zones, um, in terms of like how long of a distance is the anti-air missiles? You know, how long range is a Stinger missile? How far can the enemy's helicopters lock on anti-air missiles lock on? These lock-on distances should kind of determine how aggressively or non-aggressively you push into an objective. So, you know, there you happen to come into a lobby where like no one is fighting the anti-air and you take out an enemy chopper and also the enemy jet pilots are terrible, you pretty much got free reign for the next like minute and a half while the enemy chopper waits to respawn. You know what I mean? You can just do whatever you want. Um, but if things are different, if you got a bunch of like guys with stingers on, you know, Charlie Delta, maybe you're gonna shift your strategy to focus only on Alpha and only cover Alpha and only help your infantry on Alpha. You know, so you have to think about like really where you're gonna fight and when you're gonna fight and why you're gonna fight there. And a lot of times, in my opinion, it's way better to like play super defensively as a chopper. Let your gunner get a stupid amount of kills. Let the enemy make stupid ass aggressive mistakes where they push themselves into stupid ass positions and punish themselves for it. That's basically my perspective on flying choppers. But a lot of people would disagree. A lot of pros would disagree. A lot of pros have a much more aggressive strategy, and a lot of them are more accurate than I am. So, you know, more power to them, and more power to you if you feel differently. Um, Also, it is worth mentioning that just because of that distance, it could be some people would consider like, well, why don't I just like fly really, really high up to avoid all the missiles? That makes you really easy to be taken out by like jets and helicopters. So overall, if you want to, it's pretty comparable, but really, you want to be at like a normal helicopter, kind of not too high height, a fighting combat height, basically just at a range of a Stinger missile, not too high. And when you're avoiding attacks, you want to go pretty low. You really never want to go super high in a helicopter. All right, now let's get on to tanking. Tanking is relatively speaking the easiest thing to do in battlefield games. It has the shortest learning curve, and I'm not trying to be a dick, but like basically everybody can be taught to play at a near professional level when it comes to tanks. Near. The biggest difference between casual tank players, tryhards, and pros is positioning, accuracy, and defense. Keeping your tank alive is what's important. There's so many tankers out there that are just like way too aggressive and just like way too addicted to like just getting a kill and suiciding for it. Like it's so much you're way more better off treating that tank like it is the most important thing to keep alive in the game. And because of the fact that like literally everything can fuck up a tank, a good jet pilot can easily strafe and take out a tank no problem. An average to decent helicopter pilot can easily take out a tank. A coordinated professional infantry squad, um, it's pretty much even. Like they could, it's like them playing against a professional tank player. It's pretty much even, so it's hard to say who would win that fight. So yeah, it's like everybody can like fuck on the tank pretty much. Everybody, if they got the skills to pay the bills, can fuck on the tank. So it really is about survival at its core. The tank is best used when it's working with an infantry team, so that way, people flanking, dropping mines behind you, or just flanking, shooting rockets in the ass of the tank. Infantry will take care of that. They'll fight them off. Really good strategy if you want to work with two squads. Have one squad in the tank, helping out the tank, the other squad working as infantry next to the tank, beside the tank, whatever with the tank. Um, Repairing the tank is easily the best role for inexperienced battlefield players, but it does require some logic. You have to jump out to repair the tank when your tank is hurt, obviously, but you have to be smart with your positioning. Typically remain crouched and be ready to hop in and end the tank at a moment's notice. Ignore that, just small pain. I'm fine. Alright, transports. This is the last subject. Thank God this is fucking over. God damn, this is way too long. Ground transports are great until you spot an enemy tank, then they should be bailed on. Transport helicopters require the skills of the gaming gods to be properly used. Often designed as a mobile spawn beacon, when flown far enough away from objectives to avoid most damage, yet close enough that teammates may parachute down onto said objective, it can be an incredible asset to a team. Yet that isn't the best part about the transport helicopter. With side-mounted chain gun and incredibly skilled pilot, the transport helicopter is effective at taking out all other air vehicles, yes, including jets. Alright, so that's basically it. That is my battlefield guide. I think I've covered just about everything that's necessary for a pro gamer of any sort to know. I hope you learned something. Best of luck out there on the battlefield. I'm CondorCalabasas. Good luck. Again, I guess. I don't know. Like and subscribe. Bye.